The Chaco War was fought between 1930 and 1935 in the Chaco region of South America. It's a forgotten conflict that pits two regional powers against each other, Bolivia and Paraguay. And it's a war that has been blamed for the decline of both nations. But if you look at the armaments used by both sides, you can see why Bolivia lost so badly. They just had inferior weapons. Now, this video is part of a larger series where we explore how modern technology influences the battlefield. So make sure to check out the rest of the videos after you finish watching this one. Also, there are timestamps below in the description so you can jump around from topic to topic. So first off, why were these two countries fighting? Well, the answer is land. The area where they clashed, El Chaco, is a mostly flat and dry region with lots of wild animals and not much vegetation. It's not someplace that people normally want to live. However, during the First World War, when agricultural production was low in Europe, this area became very valuable because it could support cattle ranching on a large scale. And since European demand for beef was high, so were land prices. At the time, Paraguay controlled most of the territory, but Bolivia also claimed parts of it. This dispute would fester until 1932 when full-blown war broke out. There are multiple reasons for this outbreak, but one of them was that the Bolivian dictator, Hernando Siles Reyes, was trying to distract his population from internal issues by starting an external conflict. Both armies were outnumbered and outgunned, but Paraguay had a greater advantage. By the end of the conflict, 75% of Bolivian soldiers were wiped out. Their army shrunk from 60,000 to 15,000 men. Paraguay lost 44% of their forces, dwindling from 50,000 to 28,000 men. In terms of tanks, Bolivia had only 3 armored vehicles throughout the entire war. These were all foreign-built. One was the British armored car, the Humber LRC, for example. They had access to the 105mm field gun, which was towed by a team of 6-pack animals. In comparison, Paraguay had 12 Curtiss Hawk II fighters. These planes were well armed with 4 .30 caliber machine guns, and they were used to great effect during the war. They helped Paraguayan troops locate and destroy Bolivian supply convoys, allowing their forces to push further into enemy territory. This weapon was good for supporting infantry, assaults, or engaging enemy artillery. Another reason for Bolivia's defeat was their lack of training. The war lasted longer than it should have because both countries were willing to accept peace deals that were unfavorable. This led to the war dragging on and more casualties being inflicted. If the conflict today, it's likely that it would have ended in a few weeks or months. When the war started, many of their soldiers had never fired their rifles before. Also, Bolivia had a divided nation. Large portions of the population lived in poverty, and the country was politically unstable. All of these factors contributed to their defeat. In comparison, Bolivia's 75mm M1916 was outdated and had a range that was half as long. They attacked their supply lines and cut off their reinforcements. Just having the will to fight isn't enough. You also need to have the tools to match. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any of our new videos. I also have social media accounts, which I post on. Feel free to add me there. I try to respond to as many people as I can. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. How do you think the outcome of the war would have changed if Bolivia had better weapons? Let me know in the comments section below. First off, the superior Paraguayan tanks allowed them to break through Bolivian defenses. They protected infantry while they advanced, helping them take key territory. Also, the better artillery inflicted heavy casualties on the defenders. In fact, during the final battle, one Paraguayan battery fired 3,000 rounds in a single day, killing and wounding thousands of Bolivians. The presence of aircraft also played a key role in the Paraguayan victory. Spotting enemy troop concentrations allowed Paraguayan artillery to inflict heavy casualties on the Bolivians. The Bolivians had no aircraft to counter this threat, meaning that their commanders had no idea that they were being stalked. Slowly, the Bolivians were worn down, many soldiers deserted, leaving their commanders with no choice but to surrender. Two were Italian-made, the L-333 and L-335. When you look at the artillery available, again, the story is the same. Paraguay won this department too. Instead, the war dragged on for almost 3 years. Eventually, Paraguay realized that they couldn't win a decisive battle, so they decided to change tactics. They began focusing on wearing down the Bolivians instead. But things get even worse for Bolivia when you look at their air force. They didn't have any combat aircraft, none. So what happened in the war? Because both countries were outnumbered, neither side could crush the other. Paraguay deployed troops in such a way that they forced the Bolivians to constantly be on the defensive. So how did the outcome of the war turn on technology? It's hard to imagine that without the technological edge, Paraguay wouldn't have won the war, but technology wasn't the only factor. In the end, 30,000 people lost their lives in the Chaco War, 10,000 civilians and 20,000 soldiers. I think the main lesson that we can take away from the Chaco War is that military hardware matters. Also, thanks again to my supporters for making these videos possible.